First, they strike.
The way that he destroyed that family from within, there's no other word I can find to describe him except evil.
Then they pretend to grieve.
Just phone somebody. Just let us know you're all right.
They appeal for help.
He knew that there was no way that a person can come back from the dead and make a phone call and say, yes, everything's fine.
But hide the truth.
We do not understand why our daughter has been murdered.
I didn't think there was no person on this earth could do that to a child.
Tonight, crocodile tears.
Help find whoever shot my husband. Please come forward.
The killers caught in the spotlight. The killers trapped in a web of their own deceit.
How you could possibly move about all day long knowing that that evening you've planned to murder someone.
It was a unique case, and one that would remain a mystery for 8 years. It would finally be solved in an unprecedented sting by one woman's determination and a detective who was prepared to take the biggest gamble of his career.
Cirencester?
They got out of a plastic bag down on the water in Cirencester.
A bag? Oh, I bet they've done her fingerprints already.
It's been a long time, actually.
It doesn't matter.
What, in water?
It doesn't matter. If it's her, it's her.
It's not particularly unusual in this day and age for people to go missing. It is unusual for a married woman with 2 young children to go missing.
November 1992, and 30-year-old businesswoman Rhonda Kay was reported missing from her family home in Newbury, Berkshire. She lived there with her husband Nick and their 2 children aged 2 and 6. The couple ran their own baby wear business from home and took in lodgers for extra money. Rhonda seemed to have everything going for her. Her disappearance was totally out of character. Police were baffled.
It just didn't sound right to us that she should suddenly disappear in the morning. Her car was left behind, all her clothes was left behind. The bank accounts and so on hadn't been interfered with.
Police have searched the canal at the back of the Kay's home, as well as the house itself and the surrounding area.
A month into the investigation, and the hunt for Rhonda had failed to unearth any new evidence. There was no body and no new sightings.
She's taken no money from her bank, and even her toothbrush is in place.
All the indications were that Rhonda Kay had either harmed herself or somebody had harmed her.
With the case at a dead end, police called a press conference in the hope of uncovering fresh leads. They asked Rhonda's husband Nick and her sister Rochelle to help with the appeal.
And every now and then the kids ask me where she is, and I just want to be able to tell the kids she's gone away and she's safe and know that it's the truth.
Every night I can come up with another story. I mean, it's so difficult for me to be able to assess what's happened to her or what she's done.
During the police investigation, it emerged that there had been trouble at the family home. 2 days before she went missing, Rhonda had found her husband Nick in bed with their lodger, Karen Scott, and had asked her to leave. It was the second time Rhonda had caught Nick having an affair, and the next day she consulted a solicitor about divorcing him.
The last time I spoke to her was she was waiting for Nick to come home from work, and she said her words to me were that she was going to have it out with him and ask him to leave.
Rochelle was surprised when she called the house the next morning.
He told me that he had gone to bed, and in the morning when he woke up to give her a cup of tea, she was gone.
The separation, she knows the separation is definite, and I know the separation is definite, but I just, for the kids' sake, I just want her to let someone know that she is safe.
He was very obliging and cooperative and prepared to do anything he could to assist. He maintained his version of events that at any moment now it was most likely that Rhonda Kay was going to walk back through the door.
But police were beginning to have their doubts about Nicholas Kay.
Next question.
There was a good deal of suspicion that Rhonda Kay had been killed, and of course Nicholas Kay, owing to the circumstances of her disappearance, Nicholas Kay would have had to been the prime suspect.
Next question.
Kay was in for a surprise. This was going to be a press conference with a sting in the tail. Among the gathered journalists was Roger Sawyer, who worked for a local news agency.
Normally when you go to a news conference like that, you'll have a little briefing with the police beforehand and they'll tell you what the situation is. Sometimes they'll explain to you that the relatives are extremely upset and they'll want you to be quite gentle with them because they're just appealing for information. It was a bit different with this one because we had the informal briefing with the police beforehand. There was none of that. In fact, almost the opposite. I remember asking the officer, is it all right if I ask him if he killed her? And he said, you can ask him what you like. Ladies and gentlemen, 2 more questions and then it ends. Roger.
I have to ask you this question, Nick. Have you killed your wife?
Rhonda Kay had mysteriously disappeared from her family home in Newbury, Berkshire. The finger of suspicion was pointing at her husband.
Gentlemen, 2 more questions and then it ends.
At a press conference, a journalist was given the go-ahead to ask the question everyone wanted answered.
Have you killed your wife? What do you think?
I was a bit surprised by that, but I just asked him then, please answer the question.
Just answer the question. No, I have not killed my wife.
I was really pleased that that particular question did come out because it was one of the questions that I wanted to ask myself.
I didn't expect the answer that he gave. I would have liked a much more sincere and concerned answer. I think a lot of people watching that interview would have expected to see some genuine signs of distress on his part.
What do you think?
And his response, to me, answered the question of his guilt. And the anger within me just brewed to such a degree that I just felt that I was going to explode.
I came out of it thereafter feeling much the same as when I went into it. I suspected that she had been murdered, and I felt it was only a matter of time before we found her body.
The appeal may have reinforced people's suspicions, but it brought forward no witnesses or new leads. There was simply nothing for the police to work on. Kay was free to go. He returned home to the house that he had shared with his wife, but now shared with his lover, Karen Scott. In fact, it would emerge that she had returned to the house just 2 days after Rhonda went missing, and that Rhonda's possessions had been sold or burnt.
I understood very clearly that Rhonda was never going to come back.
Kay later married Karen Scott.
It would be news to hear. We've really had a belly full of all this, to be honest.
With no body and no evidence, the investigation into Rhonda's disappearance went cold. For 7 years, there were no sightings of Rhonda. Rochelle was battling to keep the investigation alive, but despite routine police reviews, the case had come to nothing.
As the years rolled by, I had to resign myself to the fact that there was a possibility that she may never be found.
But things were about to change. Autumn 1999, and Rhonda's case was reviewed by Detective Superintendent Trevor Davis.
When I first reviewed the case, I looked at likely suspects. And of course, who was the person with motive? Nicholas Kay. Who was the person with opportunity? Nicholas Kay. And if you put those together with the circumstances that prevailed at the time, in other words, he'd just been discovered for the second time having an affair in quite a reasonably short period of time, he had to become the major suspect.
He assured me that it would be his last major case before he retired, and that he would do everything in his power to get me the answers that I'd so desperately needed.
There was no forensic evidence that had come to light that was going to implicate Nicholas Kay, and therefore my conclusion was that if we were going to get to the bottom of Rhonda's disappearance, then it had to come from him, and probably him alone.
Davis came up with a groundbreaking plan. The police had recently been given new powers to bug private homes if there was no other way of obtaining evidence. He was given the official go-ahead to mount a covert surveillance operation on Kay's home. Bugs were planted in the kitchen, bedroom and bathroom. It was an extraordinary gamble.
It may well have been within the family that they never ever spoke about it, so it needed a catalyst to bring that to the fore.
That catalyst would be Rochelle. Davis scripted a phone call during which Rochelle would tell Kay that remains had been found. She would give the minimum amount of information in the hope that anything Kay said would incriminate him.
I had to make him believe that it was me speaking normally and convince him that a body had been found. And the pressure of knowing that my words were so important was tremendous.
It was a high-risk strategy. They had to get it right first time. There would be no second chances. Rochelle would make the call to Kay, but not engage in conversation. The police would then monitor the reaction between him and his wife, Karen.
Hello, Nick. It's Rochelle. The police have been down to see me. They found some remains and have taken some DNA samples. I hope they get you this time, you bastard.
What the surveillance team were about to hear was dynamite.
What? That was Rochelle.
What?
That was Rochelle.
What did she say? Hold on a minute.
Got her out of the plastic bag down on the water in Cirencester.
A bag? Oh, I bet they've done her fingerprints already.
It's been down there a long time.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it'll all be circumstantial though, won't it?
Oh, God.
I can't take this.
Yes, but putting it in a plastic bag looks suspicious. If they look in the bottom of the river, there's pebbles. The first thing you should have discussed it with me. I mean, I don't think you're telling me the truth. I don't think you use gloves.
Why wouldn't I use gloves?
It became apparent to me that I was actually listening to a confession from his own mouth.
You don't know it. They could have found slight forensic evidence in the van. They could have found slight forensic evidence on the walls in the bedroom as well.
No.
Have you heard about that light that picks up?
You know, I mean, I had a hell of a job getting the carpet sorted. You know, that Hoover, that thing, I must have been on it for over an hour. I must have done all of it.
As the information came out about the likelihood of what had happened to Rhonda, the evidence was getting stronger and stronger.
Bloody Rochelle.
Sorry?
Bloody Rochelle.
After 48 hours, police felt that at last they had enough evidence to arrest Kay.
Nicholas Kay said that he knew that the house had been bugged and that he said certain things as a joke meant for the police, who he knew were listening. That was an absolute nonsense. When we looked at the tapes overall, it was more than evident that it was no joke.
Nicholas Kay was charged with the murder of his wife, Rhonda. There was no evidence to implicate his current wife, Karen. In the recorded conversations, there were references to a body in water near Cirencester. Police divers searched local gravel pits, but found nothing. In a 30-square-mile area, the chances of ever finding Rhonda's body are remote. With no body or forensic evidence, for the first time ever, a whole case would depend entirely on taped evidence. Kay continued to maintain his innocence, but the recordings were to seal his fate. However, possibly influenced by the fact that no body had ever been found, the jury returned a surprise verdict of manslaughter, not murder. He was jailed for 6 years.
He could quite easily have gone to the courts like everyone else and got a divorce, and to take somebody's life under these circumstances is absolutely unacceptable, and he couldn't be allowed to take those dark secrets behind closed doors and keep them there.
And every now and then the kids ask me where she is, and I just want to be able to tell the kids she's gone away and she's safe and know that it's the truth.
He knew that there was no way that a person can come back from the dead and make a phone call and say, yes, everything's fine. He just did it for the cameras and to get a sympathy vote.
You killed your wife. What do you think?
Just answer the question.
No, I have not killed her wife.
There are more than 800 murders a year in Britain, and every year there are dozens of police press appeals. But in the last decade alone,